quarantine restrictions. We discuss in this episode of the Chiefs. And a happy Monday to you, and welcome to this special episode of The Chiefs. With us, of course, tonight are Ana Marie Pamintuan of the Philippine Star, Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5, and Robbie Alampay of One News reporting from the One News newsroom.
Good
Happy Monday.
evening. Happy Monday.
Robbie, Robbie, ano big story nyo ngayon? What's your big story tonight?
Well, the numbers pa rin tumataas, and of course the WHO reporting that the Philippines nominally has the highest number of rises, no, in terms of absolute figures, di ba? But then, of course, Malacanang is trying very hard to qualify that, saying that, in proportion to the population, kung yun ang titingnan mo, kung yun ang, if that rate is what you're looking at, we're not necessarily the worst. But then again, di ba? I mean, and Malacanang acknowledges that any rise is not good news. But of course, that's what we're looking at. We're also looking at, on the other side of it, on another aspect, POGOs, di ba? Government is now bracing for the possibility of more POGO companies leaving the Philippines.
Yes. Although some senators have welcomed that.
Yes.
Yes.
Sabi nga ng senators, good news daw.
Senator Drilon, one of them. Yes.
No, I mean, yun naman talaga. I mean, there has always been a lot of critics of POGOs, particularly, of course, among other things, there's the matter of hindi nagbabayad ng taxes and so on. But this actually goes back to that same problem because one of the factors that government is now facing very well, admitting and acknowledging is some are leaving rather than having to pay.
Yeah. Right. Wow.
We're talking, for example, about, aside from yung withholding tax, we're talking about the franchise tax, yung 5%, which, if I recall correctly, most of the POGOs refused to pay.
Yeah.
And remember the last time we were talking to ASEC Tony Lambino, it was still as if, look, this is being negotiated. We're using both carrot and stick to compel them to pay. But it looks like, based on the news that we were reading kanina and that we were covering, it looks like some of these companies would rather just up and go. And the big question is, can government do anything to keep them from even going and leaving that debt on the table?
It could also be that they're suffering lack of financial viability because of the COVID. No? It's, I'd like to think that now it's both. If before it was a question of not wanting to pay up, now it's both a question of not wanting to pay up and at the same time business being really slow.
But the POGOs involved here, these are, if you're talking about the headquarters themselves, they're not really here. What they have here, the contractors.
Yes,
these POGOs that refuse to pay are not really based here. They just have contractors doing their work for them here. So even if you try to stop them, I don't know if you can.
yes, but the counter is global, Ed. I mean, kahit saan ka magpunta, people are really having a hard time trying to make a living, no? Jobs are at an all-time low and unemployment at an all-time high.
Saka yung mga istorya, yung nagbanggaan na yung fishing boat natin, saka yung Hong Kong registered ship na 14 na Pilipino are missing, and right now sinuspindi muna ng Coast Guard yung paghahanap daw sa 14 dahil sa poor visibility. So bukas na uli magre-resume yun tomorrow morning. So,
And curiously, nahanap pa nila yung nakataob na barko. Pero hindi na nahanap yung mga tao.
Yung tao ang may hirapan.
Nakuna pa nila ng picture yung barko ng nakataob. Nakuna pa nila ng pictures. And before siya lumubog siya eventually. So you have a problem there.
Well, siguro ipasok na natin yung
let's bring in our guest for tonight. Still related, of course, to COVID among other things. With joining us tonight are film directors Eric Mati, and Carlitos Sigion Reyna. Direk Mati, of course, is the founder and co-owner of Reality Entertainment and a member of the Philippine Motion Pictures Producers Association, while Carlitos Sigion Reyna is a board member as well of the Directors Guild of the Philippines. Drex, Drex. Good evening, and thank you for joining us in the Chiefs.
Good evening
Good
po.
evening.
Good
Good
Mm.
evening,
evening. Thank
Greg.
you.
Mm. Drex, so much to talk about, especially yung medyo konti yung kiskisan with the FDCP. But before we go to that, I'd like to ask you something in particular about it. Kamusta na ho kayo? Kasi I know I suppose it would make for a great film na you have so much science, drama, politics in the COVID issue. But at the same time, people, I suppose your industry is also asking the same question na how will your industry even survive this pandemic? How are you guys doing now?
Uh, well, as from my own observation, yeah, I think a lot of people during this period have, probably worked on their own projects, what they can do from their own homes, and also taken advantage of the free online screenings of shows
Mm-hmm.
that have
Mm-hmm.
been featured locally and internationally. And I think there have been tuloy naman yung planning from my observation, tuloy yung planning ng pre-production of projects na online
Yes, Direk.
series
Direk,
or
Direk, if I
mga
may, Direk, if I may interject, kasi yeah, the planning is well and good, pero we don't see a vaccine anytime soon. So I mean, if this lasts for a year na walang vaccine, how are you going to survive, and how are your people going to make a living in that more or less 1 year or even more na walang viable vaccine?
well, yeah, I mean that's why merong mga protocols that were created from within the industry, yung yung interguild protocols, and some companies have also created their own protocols, and so they're I think little by little, I think I'm hearing news about productions resuming, but not in a big way, but with a lot of health and safety guidelines, following health and safety guidelines, yung syempre mas shorter working hours and all of that. So mas mahaba yung shooting schedule. So yeah, I mean the costs are really far higher than they've ever been.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Plus yung
Direct
returns would be smaller,
direct
syempre, kasi you will have less people watching. You can have crowded venues eh. But you can expect a big hit doon sa revenue side.
Mga pang online, I think a lot of people are thinking of doing, resuming shoots for online distribution.
but that's what I wanted to ask, no? Medyo nagulat ako na kasama pala sa Film Development Council yung mga online productions. I was under the impression na pag film, we're really talking about film and at best, uh, movies made for TV. So, kasama pala yun. Direct? Direct na rin.
Well, right now it got even more confusing because we saw this we saw this department order number 81 that assigns Undersecretary RJ Jacinto, and in that letter, FDCP is under him, his office, and including entertainment, live events, advertising, and TV.
Okay.
So now, are we saying hindi na ba natin i-acknowledge yung hinihingi ng FDTV? Do we now talk to another office regarding this?
Yeah.
We still don't know that. It's been passed last Friday.
Okay.
This department order.
I know. So, ang
So
daming
if that,
affected, no? Ang daming
yes,
affected. So,
yeah.
can you tell us first what your major points of, well, your rant are?
Well, number one, um, the cinemas will be closed until further notice.
Yes.
Some are saying they're gonna open on October. with three seats apart, both on the side, the front, and the back.
Yes.
So that brings down the number of audience that could come in.
Right.
All the other online platforms, we don't see any promise yet. All the producers, uh, on wait and see mode.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can recoup the budget based on just the online
Right.
releases. And then on top of that, FDCP, knowing the problems we're experiencing during this pandemic, came up with several. There's the joint memorandum circular
Yes.
that talked about limiting the working conditions on set.
Yeah.
But right now, with the pandemic on top of it, it doesn't look viable, knowing that there are other things that we have to contend with based on the safety and health of the workers.
So why
They
not
came up.
viable? What? What
Uh,
exactly are
well,
the requirements that are making this shoot not viable?
just one of the things in the JMC that is mentioned, among other things, it limits the working hours between 8 to 16 hours. 8 hours. After that, you pay overtime of 25% of the salary of all workers.
Okay.
When we were presented with that idea, we didn't say no because, of course, we wanted better working conditions, that's coming from a producer standpoint and a filmmaker. So the suggestion was to go 12 to 6 hours, 12 hours
Yes.
overtime for only the small ticket salaries, the ones between 3 to 5,000 pesos, earning 3 to 5,000 pesos a day.
Yes.
Not across the board. Meaning actors, the big actors, they're paid more than
Yeah.
a normal rate.
Right.
So if we go up to 16, then good. But the JMC, after that consultation with us, was released without those adjustments. Even Hollywood has 12 work hours on a day of shoot. How
Okay.
come we're only allowed 8 hours for a small country like ours, for a
Yeah.
small industry like ours? And that's not only because producers will complain about it, but also from a worker standpoint, we're used to the culture of Philippine cinema is that of segue shooting.
What is that?
Because you're not paid Hollywood rates, you get to work on several projects all at the same time. So
Yes.
if you're shooting with me now, tomorrow you have another shoot in another production.
I see.
Just so on a monthly scheme,
Yes.
you earn as much as you earn for your
Yes.
family.
Yes. Right.
Now, who assures us with that segue culture? Who assures us that whoever comes in to our sets, given we have to be efficient for only 8 hours, that everyone is well rested, that the work efficiency, because before, actors who are doing TV can finish at 4 a.m. and go to your set at 6 a.m., go to sleep,
Wow.
wait until they'll be called, and then at 10 a.m. when you call them, of course they're still tired. And so
Hero, hero.
with just
Yes.
8 hours, how can you get an efficient? That's
Right.
actors are just one of them. I'm not singling out actors,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Right.
Yeah,
So
but direct
that alone is problematic.
hmm. Yeah, but direct, you'll acknowledge that
Yes.
all of this presumably is coming from a public health perspective and a concern for that. And then when it comes to
Eh,
impacting your
Robbie,
industry, yes.
Sorry, correction.
Hmm.
JMC was before the pandemic. The
Okay.
JMC was passed before the pandemic.
Okay.
The Joint
Okay.
Memorandum Circular. Now, the JMC, they included that in a new document, which is
Hmm.
the Joint Administrative order,
Yeah.
where it includes the safety and health protocols dictated by DOH.
How does this affect your bottom line if you are a producer? I mean, just give us an idea of how much this is going to cost you in terms of pesos and centavos.
Uh, okay, just to give you an idea,
Yeah.
when we loosened up, when we went on GCQ, right? Uh,
Yes.
when Manila went into and we were allowed to shoot,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
three productions resumed shooting. They had each of those productions, which they started already before the pandemic. Each of those productions had probably just 2 more days left, 3 more days left.
Okay.
The producers had to stop shoot because now, with the new safety and health protocols dictated on set protocols, they added 3 more days on a 2 day shoot. So the
Oh,
2 day shoot became
again. Yeah,
Mm.
I see. I see.
a
The
regular
better.
shooting day on
So
a
it's at
set
least
will
50%.
cost around 800 to 1.5
Mm.
million pesos.
Yeah.
So additional 3 more days,
Yeah.
it will incur around 3-4 million.
So we're
Yes,
talking
but
So
Direk,
about
now
Direk,
that
I
those three
think this is.
productions
50%.
stop
Mm.
shooting.
But Direk, I think this is my point, no? Pero yung sa given all the public health concerns right now, everybody is affected. Everybody is inefficient. Everybody's costs are rising. What would you recommend? I mean, given that it's almost inevitable, what would be reasonable things or reasonable recommendations that would at least allow you to come up with some model that you can live with?
We want the government agency who's telling us what to do to have a dialogue with us, listen, because we are the ones who work on the ground.
Mm, mm.
We know what's needed.
Okay. So
Yes,
assuming they talk to
we
you, assuming
adhere
they
to
take the
whatever
time,
Have
safety and
that
health
dialogue.
protocols
Hindi
yeah.
pa
So
kayo
they.
nag-have that
Sorry.
dialogue?
no.
You have had that dialogue? Sige, Director
Yes, direct.
Carlos.
Direct Carlitos will
Yes,
answer.
so DGPI, we've had dialogues, town hall meetings with FDCP, and also later on we've had meetings. We were part of the interguild. We're part of the interguild alliance that has had several meetings with FDCP with Chairman Lisa Dino. Um, so merong mga, but like first it was the PMPPA, and Eric is here, a member of PMPPA. They In the first town hall, I remember the PMPPA already stated that they have had certain suggestions that they had raised before that town hall meeting. Tapos pagdating doon sa town hall meeting with the chair, FDCP, wala lahat yung mga sinuggest, wala yung mga sinuggest ng PMPPA na improvements on the protocols. So in other words, parang hindi pinansin. So that was a point of contention with PMPPA, and it was at that point that I think the PMPPA left the table. DGPI and what's this? IGA, we decided to stay because sige, we'll keep on working with it. We'll keep on pushing for certain for our ideas for the protocols, and these were health and safety conscious protocols. Like we normally shoot 16. I think ang pinag-uusapan, the last negotiations, internal industry negotiations na pag-uusapan were about 16 working hours because of the Eddie Garcia bill negotiations. So now because of this pandemic, we have scaled that back to 12 working hours, and then 12, mga 10 to 12 hour work turnaround time, which is the time between pack up and resuming the shoot the next day. There are several other things, no, like we were pushing for, because of the nature of the shoots, you really need, kasi ang gusto ng Department of Health, I think is originally 10 people ang workforce mo is 10 people, and it's impossible to shoot naman a film with 10 people. I mean, so we were really pushing for the normal. A normal size of, as far as I know, a normal size in normal times, it would be at least, 75 people at the least.
Wow.
I want to clarify.
That includes actors, but I just want to finish this. Then we were pushing for a 70. So ang Dole and FDCP were pushing. Basically they said 50, pwede 50 na lang maximum. O sige, ganyan. But basically, but we were already from the beginning. We were opposing certain things like yung reportorial requirements that are now required.
Yes.
This latest advisory requires productions to register 7 days before the shoot. And ang nakasulat doon would be, ang pinapa-register would be in line, parang yung mga production shoots must be reported to DOLE and FDCP. The form will contain specific details of the planned production shoot, including the people participating at the production site. Now, of course, this is all under the ambit of health and safety. But we are, considering that we were already saying that, this is a free enterprise business. I mean, the only requirement anyway in normal times really is to make a report, an annual report to the DOLE. Now, this one is requiring before the shoot, 7 days, you have to submit details of your production. And we're kind of concerned that it is going into something more than health and safety protocols.
Yeah, but Derek, is it just unwieldy or is it impossible? In the same context that you said, it's impossible to have 10 people in a film production. Are you saying it's unwieldy or is it really impossible as well?
It's unwieldy, but also not only is it unwieldy, considering the conduct that the FDCP has been conducting with which they have been running these town halls and these consultations, basically consult, we give our ideas, we give our suggestions, tapos, and then disappear na for about 2 weeks, and then paglabas, biglang may chow, may memorandum, merong mga orders, that what we talked about, none of which is there. So and then but all these things, all these ideas about you have to register 7 days before are all coming from where? And so we're looking at it. We can't help but, ako personally, I can't help but feel that this is in the light of everything that's been affecting media these days, the closure of ABS-CBN, this new agency that's coming up, run by this digital thing with the names of Ramon Nasito attached to it, and all of these mga things that are affecting media. We're kind of suspicious at this requirement of asking register every production 7 days before the shoot with, at this point, unspecified since sabi lang something you have to specific details of the planned production shoot, including the people participating at the production site. Well, okay, right now it looks like it's all about including the people participating, siguro the inventory of people and equipment and stuff. But ano pang hihingin yan? I mean, and the next thing is this reminds me of the days before the lifting of martial law, which was, scripts were being asked by the MTRCB before you can shoot. Before you shoot, you have to submit scripts and things like that. And this is getting to smell something like that. So it's not only unwieldy, but it is raising valid suspicions, I think, as to media control. The media control.
Well, I want to ask you about that, because this has been an issue between you and the FDC, the Film Development Council, because you've been saying that FDCP should concern itself only with film development, but it's going to regulation and now getting into stronger regulation actually. And in fact, yung JAO nyo, meron yatang sanction, if you violate up to 100%.
Okay, ganito na.
Anong option sa inyo kapag ganyan? Kapag ganyan, anong option ng film industry kapag ganyan?
Well, we will continue pushing back and resisting this, and we're going to continue, bringing bringing the there are several irregularities going on, and we have to bring the attention of the concerned agencies, particularly DOLE, IATF, and DOH on this, because ang nangyayari dito, the ones with the regulatory powers are DOLE, IATF, and DOH. FDCP has no regulatory powers. And to get what it wants, it has kind of like I believe I feel that they have basically talked with the regulatory
Agencies.
agencies, and parang sumakay at umangkas sa may powers and suggested their yung kanilang mga add-on ng mga riders na gusto ng FDCP. At tapos ilinagay na dun sa mga to that JAW, which is signed off by the secretaries of health and what's the other one? Labor. So
So
it is
you're saying dahil walang regulatory powers, nagtago behind the agencies that
yes,
have the
that's in
regulatory
short,
powers.
para nakaangkas sa
Yeah.
power ng DOLE at ng DOH. That's what it
Direct
looks like.
Eric, Direct Eric, I want your input here because I'm interested in precisely that word that you threw in there, suspicious. You're saying this is not just confusing, this is not just perplexing. They are also saying this is not just unconsulted. Suspicious is a very loaded word, and you're saying that you smell hints of what you could only experience before during the time of martial law. Direct Eric, you share this suspicion?
Yes, I think it's encroaching on freedom of expression.
Hmm.
I think we're there. The industry is there when it's about safety and health protocols.
Yeah.
So if we need the registry, just so everyone can contact trace whoever is out there, that's good. But to give details of a project that you're doing, including budgets, including personnel, including that's a totally different story. And
Hmm.
And
in
right now,
connection
yan
to
pa
what
lang. Yan pa lang
Yeah,
right now.
yeah, but that's
yeah.
where I want you to continue, Direct Eric. I mean, as Direct Carlitos was suggesting, what's next? And then there is what I would
Yes.
still say is still a gap. You're still making that leap now. What's next? A pre-approved script? I mean, I don't quite see how you make that connection from the business side to now saying now this will go to pre-approving scripts.
Yes, and in connection to what Direk Carlitos was saying, we double check this. FDCP is under the DepEd,
Yes.
so the
Hmm.
mandate is really the DepEd.
Hmm.
So why is of course PMPA has already written a letter to DepEd clarifying the position of FDCP regarding this. But beyond that, who else is gonna tell FDCP that hey, wait a minute, do you really have the authority over all these industries? Because right now, what FTCP is saying is that they don't only enforce regulations to the film industry, but also in advertising, live events, TV.
Hmm.
And
So
none of these other
are you
industries know
planning
about
any
them.
challenge? Are you planning to challenge it legally or through some other venue? Are you planning to challenge this setup? Since you are invoking freedom of expression,
I can speak on behalf
potential
of
threats.
PMPPA, but we are discussing all possible remedies to this problem.
Direct Carlitos on
Yes,
your
I mean, certainly it's the same discussions are going on, and we are, uh, I mean, discussions are going on. That's what that's what I can tell you right now.
yeah.
But yeah, we haven't stopped. I mean, and we're not stopping on this. But teka muna, let me get back on. The thing is, yeah, we are concerned about health and safety. We are concerned. We are really all for following the DOLE and the DOH guidelines on working hours and turnaround times and the number of people involved. But these added requirements, which are not originated from DOLE and from DOH, and which has been, all of these working hours and ito mga working hours, number of people, etc. These are things that DOLE and DOH have, I believe, have commonly applied to all industries. One of which the film industry is only one. But these things about filing, registering with the FDCP and it was 7 days before about your production shoot details and all of that, and yung mga ganyan tapos and this overreaching into
Yeah.
sectors outside of the film industry, this is unique to the film
Yeah.
industry. This is
Okay.
unique, and I would
I
argue this
see.
is discriminatorily being applied to our industry. Okay,
Okay.
so
So
this,
to carry on the metaphor that you mentioned kanina, that or at least that you agreed to, that this is in effect FDCP with no regulatory powers hiding behind agencies that have regulatory powers. You're now suggesting that ultimately the other side of that, the other effect of that, is the FDCP now cloaking itself with regulatory powers as they can convince the agencies to
yeah,
cloak them with that power.
yeah. I think
Okay.
this is another thing that I wish that we hope makarating. Then I mean, it's a message
Yeah,
from the DGPI to the regulatory agencies of government,
I see.
to DOH, to DOLE, to all regulatory agencies of government, that in all matters regarding regulation, and as well to the Congress and to the House and to the Senate, that in all manners of legislation covering the film industry, I think they are best advised to consult the stakeholders of the industry directly and not through the FDCP, which does not necessarily represent the positions of the industry stakeholders, despite all claims that it does. So
Okay.
that's just our message to
Last
all
question.
regulatory arms of government and all legislative arms of government. Please consult us directly. We are,
Okay.
we are here, the producers, the directors, the actors. We are not represented by the FDCP.
Okay, last question na lang to Direct Eric. In your Facebook rant, parang you've closed the doors to consultations with FDCP. Can you confirm that?
No. Well, how can you say no to a government agency? Well, literally now, I'm ready to close doors on FDCP, knowing what they did with the JMC, wherein we sat down with FDCP and we gave our suggestions. We met them halfway, and then they still published it without any of the comments coming from the PMPPA. And then the JAW, the Directors Guild of the Philippines, and the Interguild worked so many weeks to
Yeah.
refer to everyone working on ground so that they can come up with a health and safety protocol that is best for people practicing filmmaking. But what did they do? They just negated that and then released their own without putting in the adjustments that DGPI and the inter agency alliance suggested. So, I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, I
the
mean these
third
are
time, they have,
Parang
on the
in
third time,
So, okay.
FDCP has to show us that we can trust them to make some changes based
All
on
right.
how we run the industry
may I
on
add
our own, right?
I'll add another thing, no? The other thing that we are deeply concerned about is the overreach into other not only the overreach from developmental concerns, film development concerns into regulation, which by law, according to the law that created the FDCP, and I was part of the creation of that law in the 2000 to 2000 through that period, I was part of the writing of that law. I know that law. The FDCP's powers are basically developmental for film development, and it covers only the film sector. It has some regulatory powers, itong mga ability to get to harness the cooperation of other agencies in government, but all of these to enforce are limited. They're limited only in the service of the section preceding it, which I forgot the section number, but the section preceding it is only, so all of these powers are, itong mga regulation that are narrowed down to be enforced only in the service of ano to? Collecting tax remittances from the municipalities to be given to CEB rated films. Hanggang dun
Okay.
lang. All of these powers to get to harness the power of other agencies are all to serve the 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 that power of the FDCP to collect tax remittances for municipalities to be granted as rewards to CEB rated films. And all of that, the power to, I understand yung CEB ratings na yon and at saka yung tax collection power na yon have already been rendered unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. That's their only power outside of film development. So really wala nang laman ng powers yung FDCP law na yan at this point because na-render unconstitutional yung kanilang sole power to collect taxes. Ang naiwan talaga dyan is film development, which we are all in agreement with. I mean, we with the consensus of the industry, we really with the cooperation of the industry, we're all in agreement with what the FTCP has been doing in pushing Philippine cinemas abroad, mga film festivals, o kaya putting up the PPP here, the Pista ng Pelikulang Pilipino, all of these mga cinematics or whatever, all of that thing, this is all developmental, not regulatory. So they've overreached there. But the other thing, the other instance of overreach is in the FDCP law, the jurisdiction of the FDCP is only over the film sector. So all of this, itong mga bagong to na meron silang power to these JAWs and all of these mga advisories are covering these new requirements, directives are covering not only the film sector but also theater, live events, advertising, people who do internet, mga online workshops and all. This is overreach. Ang sinasabi ng FDCP is they're limiting that. They're limiting their jurisdiction to, let's say, live events with no audiences. Presumably, this is like the taking of these live events for distribution online. So kaya sinasabi nila, kaya film, parang siguro yun ang sinasabi nila because there's that filming component. Pero I would just want to bring this out, no? That because let's say theater or events or advertising or whatever, because they film their events for distribution online does not convert them to the film sector.
Agree. Okay.
They are not. They are just actually in the law. In the law, it's the film sector ang jurisdiction. It is not people who film things. It is the film sector, which is the film industry. And I was part of that law. And even if you check the records of the Congress and of the Senate, the minutes of all the technical working groups and all the subcommittee, committee, and plenary hearings on this law, it was all the only industry being mentioned was the film industry, and specifically mainstream film industry, not even the indies at that time. It was the mainstream film industry. Walang commercials, walang theater, walang events. So that's the thing.
So
Yes.
this is full circle. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I see Direk Mati nodding his head. We'll have to leave it there that he is in complete agreement with everything that Direk Carlitos Guionreyna said. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this segment. Maraming salamat po, Directs Eric Mati and Carlitos Guionreyna. Please stay right there. The Chiefs will be right back.
Maraming salamat. Thank you.
Welcome back to the Chiefs. We are now in the final stage of our episode tonight. And joining us is Undersecretary Mary Lisa Dino, Chairperson and CEO of the Film Development Council of the Philippines. Good evening po, Yusek Dino.
Good evening, Miss Amy.
Welcome to
Thank
the
you for inviting me.
Yes, well, we just talked to directors Eric Mati and Carlito Sigion Reina. And they're saying, I think you probably listened to them, the FDCP is being accused of overreach on two areas. One is the health protocols that they say is bordering on encroaching on freedom of expression, and the other is encroaching on or overreaching on your mandate, which is only mainstream film. When and they're saying you are trying to regulate live events, theater, advertising, and online production. What can you say about this, Yusek?
Just to give context to the joint administrative order, the DOH released Administrative Order 2020 0015 mandating various national government agencies to create sector based protocols that would address specifically the health and safety protocols that needed to be adapted in the different industries. And because yun nga, the film industry is always left behind in this whole scope of what is supposed to be supported by the different government agencies. Ang tagal ng, for the longest time, it's been self-regulated, di ba? So, FDCP hosted a town hall meeting with our stakeholders to introduce to them the policy initiative of the FTCP to work with DOH and different agencies like DOLE to come up with these guidelines. So we had 17 consultation meetings with various stakeholders, various sectors, different workers, different organizations, so that we can come up with these comprehensive guidelines that would, address the health and safety protocols within this COVID pandemic. And that's what we did. I mean, we recognize that FDCP has limitations in its mandate. That's why we work with agencies through joint administrative orders para yung coverage nila at yung mandato nila masuportahan yung industriya namin. Kasi ang hirap naman, we can't just stand and realize na walang mabibigay na suporta, walang maibibigay na protocols para mag-reopen kami just because hindi kami covered or hindi kami saklaw ng mga kino-cover na industries ng DOLE. And DOLE admits to the fact that yun nga, the film industry has because its unique setup and the peculiarity surrounding the working conditions of our workers, talagang hindi talaga siya nako-cover ng traditional na mga occupational safety and health standards na kino-cover nila. So, we're here to support.
Yusek, will go straight to the point, no?
Yeah.
They're really protesting your requirement for them to submit a report 7 days before a shoot, which they used to do only once a year. So they're now afraid that, they feel that it harks back to martial law days, and that if they allow you to do it now, you will encroach further into their freedom and require them to actually submit the script or the content. Anong masasabi niyo ron?
Actually, ito pong requirement ay hindi po requirement ng FDCP. Requirement po siya ng DOLE. Dahil ang DOLE po, for occupational safety and health, kailangan po nang mag-register ng mga productions para malaman yung location ng productions, para malaman kung saan sila nag-shoot. They have to actually submit to the DOLE regional offices every single time that they do a production. That's the reason kung bakit whether there is non-compliance to that, labas na po tayo doon. Pero that is mandated. That's also the reason why para
Yes,
po
but
makapag-investigate maayos ang... And then the DOH also requires for contact tracing, a list of the workers. So what FDCP did with our JAO is to consolidate these requirements to give to our workers to in one form. So ang goal actually namin is to cut through the bureaucracy of having to submit to both. We talk to
Yeah.
them and we ask them if we can just centralize the
Yeah,
submission para isang email na lang.
yeah. Ma'am, one basic question lang po dyan. Maybe this will help to clarify. Who implements this? Who does, you said, i-monitor natin, we help to cut the bureaucracy and so on, but therefore, kahit saan pa nanggaling yung regulations na yan, whether it's DOLE or DOH, who implements it?
What do you mean implementation? Of course, it's a job.
To whom do the report, to whom do the reports go? Who makes the decision? And who basically makes that call that a certain film crew or a certain production was in breach of the JAO?
It's the DOH and the DOLE.
It's not the FDCP.
No, the FDCP just receives the report, the registration form. So FDCP receives it. We give them a reply of thank you for registering, happy filming. This is the manual. This is the JAO. For your guidance, these are forms that you can use if you want to conduct. If for your guidance, meron kaming COVID sign-in registration form as mandated by the DOH, meron kaming risk and illness injury form just to make sure na lahat ng mga hinihingi ng mga ahensya na to, meron na silang template.
But
so
you said,
it's really
you said,
consolidate everything.
how do you assuage their fear, in fact, their suspicion that this is just the start? And I think that they were counting on you to understand their situation, that this is just too much work that is beyond just the ambit of health protocols.
Every single industry right now is requiring registration for contact tracing. If you go to a restaurant, you have to sign a declaration form. Every single restaurant. It's actually a government mandate right now to make sure that because it is a health and safety issue, kailangan nating mag-contribute as citizens to help in the contact tracing of the government. In the event of an outbreak, in the event na merong nangyari, at least alam natin agad yung location. We can talk to the LGUs agad so that they can disinfect the place. We can identify who is exposed to the COVID virus. So kasi parang, yeah.
No, if you don't mind.
It's really more of a health and safety issue.
Yeah, I know. And I think to be fair to Direct Carlitos and Eric, they never said, in fact, they said very explicitly, we understand, we're all in the same boat. We understand the public health concerns here. Going back to what Lucci was asking, I think their question was, they feel that you mentioned 17 consultations, you mentioned the town hall, but at the end of the day, quite frankly, the bottom line for their story is our interests were not represented. In fact, they're saying that their interests were misrepresented.
In what way? In what way?
Well,
I need to know that. Kasi everything that was in the JAO was a product of all our consultations. If you compare the IGA protocols with what is written in the JAO, the only thing that's different there is the 50 that the DOH recommend. The DOH requires versus the 70 that they want. But right now, hindi natin pwedeng labanan itong erring on the side of caution ng DOH. So we have to respect that. So aside from that, everything that nasa JAO, if you even compare it, the contents are the same. We're incorporated a lot of what they suggested. We even included them in the footnote. There are departmental roles annexes that we feel gives value to the specific department roles of the different members of the sector. So sinama namin yung sa post-production, sinama namin yung sa sound. So I don't really know where this is coming from na hindi kami nakikinig.
So you're saying you consulted directors and movie producers because this is the Directors Guild of the Philippines. You talked to the
Yes.
Directors Guild of the Philippines.
Yes, and even right before the release of the JAO itself, they had a meeting with the DOH. We arranged a meeting with the DOH, with the entire IGA, the Interguild Alliance. It is a community of the different guilds. They had a meeting, a 3 hour meeting with the DOH, 2 hours or 3 hours meeting with the DOH, one by one addressing their concerns. And the DOH was able to explain to them the need, why such provisions need to be implemented and included in the JAO.
They're
Yeah,
also
ma'am.
saying you're extending jurisdiction of the FDCP over a theater, live events, advertising, and online. Is this also accurate?
Uh, Actually, just to put context to that, the live events, the National Live Events Coalition, which basically represents a lot of the members of the live events sector, came to us and they asked, kasi right now, nagko-conduct, uh, hindi sila pinapayagang so gusto nilang mag-migrate into content production because bawal nga yung audience. So they can create something that's simulating or like an event pero walang audience. So it's like content so that they can stream it in online, they can stream it sa iba't ibang platforms. And unfortunately, hindi sila pinapayagan ng LGUs right now because just because of the word event, hindi na sila pinapayagan when in fact, it's actually content. So we consulted with the DOH, and we asked and we, nilapit namin yung situation ng live events industry kasi nga we want to also help them restart and reopen na. So with our discussion, because na-identify naman ng DOH and ng DOLE na, okay, wala namang audience to. So it's actually recorded, it's treated as a content production. So it's actually an audiovisual production just with the live events components. So
Yes.
we released that advisory to clarify that if a live event production without an audience is going to be requesting to be allowed to shoot, that they should be allowed to shoot because they're covered in the JAO as long as they, abide by the protocols and the provisions within the guidelines, then they should be allowed to shoot.
After having heard them, is your door still open to further dialogue, especially because they really feel that you are overreaching your role as film development and getting into a regulatory role? Would you like to assure them
Of
that
course, of course, we've always been open to different to the needs of the sectors. I'm having offline conversations with various directors, with various filmmakers to ask FDCP about clarifications about this. Actually, maglalabas nga kami ng FAQs bukas para lang ma-address yung mga questions nila kasi medyo lumayo na talaga yung topic, naging issue na siya ng martial law. Parang, but in the first place, we were just asked to create monitoring tools. So parang ginawa namin yung 7 days just so we have enough time to submit to LGU when these production forms are submitted to us. So it's really more to streamline this coordination among the different government agencies who will be in charge of monitoring implementation. Actually, implementation and inspection is going to be done by LGU. The penalties and whatever sanctions for violations will be under DOLE and DOH. FDCP put context to what the situation, what the industry is experiencing as a film industry, and that's actually how we come in, and that's normal for a lot of government agencies. CHED is working right now with DOH also for safety and protocols for the schools. PSC, the Philippine Sports Commission, is also working with the DOH for health and safety protocols in the sports sector, especially when it comes to sport events. So it's really with other film commissions all over the world, health and safety protocols within their industries and directly addressing their stakeholders. It's a normal thing. Marami na pong lumabas na mga global practices on released by various film commissions on the health and safety protocols.
Well, thank you for that clarification. And I think this discussion is going to run on for some time. But unfortunately, we've run out of time. Undersecretary Mary Lisa Dino, Chairperson and CEO of the Film Development Council of the Philippines. Thank you for joining the Chiefs.
Salamat.
Thank you so much for
Maraming
the
salamat.
opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah. And that's a wrap for tonight. You can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. That will be all for this special edition of the Chiefs. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. I'm Abby Paminton of the Philippine Star.
I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5.
I'm Robbie Alampay, and we are One News.